So what we see, whether consciously or unconsciously, influences us. Even the colors we perceive. Right? Certain colors have an influence on us. White is said to be peaceful. Well, look, the white dove, for example, that stands for peace. I mean, there are a lot of symbolisms that white is peace. So also some of the Buddha figures, they're just different expressions of different qualities. And they're said to have a psychological effect on our minds. So we put them to be reminded, to be inspired. Just as you put pictures on your walls that inspire you, make you feel peaceful. That's the whole thing. It's not about the picture. But you're inspired by that. And if you treat it as if it was really a Buddha, an awakened being, well, actually the awakened beings are all around us. But we're not aware of it. We have a sense of reality. We see this as totally ordinary and maybe dirty and as limited. So our own limitations are reflected in our environment. We don't see things as they really are. Whatever restrictions we have, we see them outside of ourselves. Oftentimes when I have a fault, I see it in other people, whether they have it or not. So what we perceive, we believe it to be an objective world, but it's just an expression of our own mind. So however limited we are, the limited the appearances are. Like I said, the movie that plays and the light come from us. So whatever is reflected over there, it seems to be existing over there, but it's just an expression of our own mind. So these pictures, because enlightened beings are all around us. So in Judaism you speak of angels, you speak of, I don't know, some divine, it's just different words, I believe, describing the same thing. But when we think of those whatever is divine, whatever is so beautiful, this purity that is around us, we get inspired. And we forget about our trivial problems, we get inspired and are able to act in a way which is not ordinary. So this reminds us of it, that's it. So that's why you have synagogues, that's why you have temples, you have churches. Those places remind you, right? It's not like, for example, God can only be in a church or only be in a synagogue. But it reminds us, it's psychology. It's all psychology. Yeah? So it's just helping our mind. So to be reminded. So having lots of images, they put incense, for example. When you walk into a temple, your senses are being inspired. Because the incense has a calming effect and you also associate it with religion. So certain smells can take your mind into a certain state. That's it. It's not like incense. If you were to burn incense every time you go to the dentist, I don't think you would burn incense in a temple. You get a toothache the moment you smell it. No. Burning incense in a certain place, your senses are right away reminded of that. And then the visual also. It's only for your own inspiration, to be inspired, that's it. Yeah, to think, oh, Buddha's all around us. Just to remind you, I can do this. I can do this myself. So you see, whatever seems so scary and weird and colorful, seriously, a Tibetan temple is not my own taste. I would not decorate my living room like a Tibetan temple. But, in Tibet, it was pretty much, in some areas, it's pretty barren, there's just green mountains and blue water and blue sky and that's it, right? There was not much in the summer you had lots of flowers and stuff, but in the winter it was pretty barren. So you walk into a temple and wow, there's colors. Nowadays, if you live on Times Square in New York City, I don't think you need that many colors because you have too many around. It's too much. Yeah. But a country as Tibet, in some areas, there's a lot of desert and so forth, and then you have these colorful temples. So it was beautiful to walk into those temples, very inspiring. And even nowadays, when you come to some of these temples, it's not what we would put in our living room. But still, your mind right away goes into a certain state. You feel peaceful, you feel calm. It's very difficult to hate your neighbor in that moment when you walk into a temple like that. It's psychology, right? Buddhism is a science of the mind. It's psychology, right? Okay, so just to explain this. So therefore, bowing down and taking refuge is nothing scary. We do it all the time. Except we sometimes take refuge in the wrong objects. Chocolate, okay, some refuge there, some relief there. But you see what I'm saying? So it shouldn't scare us. Just because sometimes we don't like something and then we just put it to the side. And then we get an incomplete picture. So better to understand it correctly and then make a decision. And we still find, no, it's not my thing. Fair enough. At least we found out about it. But this is the topic of refuge. It's like where you mentally connect to something greater than yourself. And depend or rely on the instructions that are given and try them out. Yeah, so you have faith temporarily until you just transform it into knowledge. That's refuge. And you only take refuge for a while until you no longer need it. Right? Once you reach those states yourself, why would you take refuge? Okay. Right. Okay, so I think that suffices for the part of refuge. Yes, yes. Okay, I don't know who was first. Okay, go ahead.
One linguistic question.
Yes.
Taking refuge is translation of a specific idiom in Sanskrit, because to my ears, taking refuge from the word refugee. That's what I listen. So taking refuge is like looking for shelter. Maybe it's my personal association. It has nothing to do with Sanskrit. So I'm asking simple question.
My problem is I don't know the Sanskrit word for taking refuge, but I can tell you the Tibetan word. Gyapsodroa.
What does it mean?
It means to go for protection.
So it's taking refuge.
Yeah.
So
Gyapsodroa. Gyap kind of means someone protecting you, something protecting you. From suffering. Protecting you from what? From suffering. So what does that mean? How can Dharma, for example, let's take Dharma. Dharma is the main of the three objects of refuge. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The most important is the second.
Probably.
Yeah. So how does Dharma protect us? Okay. So a teaching, what is Dharma? For example, a teaching that teaches that anger is destructive. Afflictions are destructive. They rise in our continuum, but they actually harm us. So a teaching on that. How does that protect you? What do you think? Does it protect you directly?
I'm ready to accept that it helps me.
Oh, it helps you. Okay.
Maybe it's my personal sensitivity. I don't know. I'm just saying I feel uneasiness with the position of being a refugee, taking a refugee as if I'm helpless or I'm getting, please save my life.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. When you're sick, do you take refuge in a doctor?
What does it mean to take refuge? I don't know.
Do you seek help? Do you seek help from a doctor?
Yes.
Okay. You seek help to be able to brush your teeth in the morning?
No.
No, you don't need help for that. Do you need help to be able to dress yourself? No, let's say you're not sick that much. So you seek help with regard to a certain problem.
Yes.
You seek refuge with regard to a certain problem, not with regard to brushing your teeth, getting dressed, and being able to find the way. So seeking help doesn't mean you seek help for everything. Seeking protection doesn't mean you need protection from everything. Seeking refuge doesn't mean from everything. So maybe the word refuge in you has the sense that I'm totally helpless. But if you seek help, that doesn't mean you're totally helpless. When you seek refuge, doesn't mean you're totally helpless. See, it's the same idea. Gyoba in Tibetan. Gyapsodroa means to go for protection. Gyoba means, can you protect me? Can you help me? Well, help me is a different word altogether. It means like, can you assist me? But gyoba means like protect, to be protected from something. So I put on a coat to be protected from the cold, right? I put on a coat. So in English we would say, I don't say the coat helps me to get warm. We say that to help me from the cold, helps me against the cold. We actually use the word, the coat protects me against the cold. So okay, I seek protection from the coat, not to have my belly filled, right? That I can do on my own. I don't need a coat to have I'm not going to eat my coat, in other words. I'm going to wear it. So here we're not saying basically, it means in relation to something. In relation to, for example, anger. Buddhism can protect me against my own anger, because my own anger harms me more than anyone else. And since a particular teaching, let's take an example of one teaching that talks about the disadvantages of anger, etc., in such a way that it makes sense to me, and now I can practice it. Now I take refuge in that, I seek help. So maybe the word "I seek help" is better. Or
this is more understandable to me.
Well, let's just use the word.
I just want to say that there is a difference between a Tibetan
Yes.
and me.
Mm-hmm.
He is coming naked. He needs a coat. I'm not coming naked. I'm coming from a culture. I have my own coats. So it's so you know, I have my own background, my cultural background, my religious background.
Yes,
I'm coming. I'm not an empty something.
Yeah.
I'm coming from somewhere. You know, I'm not refuge.
But Tibetans, before they lost their country, they were also not refugees.
No, they don't have any other philosophy or religion. So they come naturally. They become Buddhists because their parents are Buddhists. I'm coming from somewhere else. So
but you know, lots of Tibetans, they call themselves Buddhists, but initially they take refuge in the material, the material world, and they're not interested. And then slowly they start seeing, that in itself is not enough, right? So taking refuge, I mean, we still seek help from an ordinary doctor. So taking refuge, so that doesn't, maybe the word is just too strong for our ears. Maybe the word, it's like seeking help, maybe is a better word. And there's no contradiction, I can use that, but it depends on your commitment. It may grow stronger. Some people, they are so into Buddhism, and their whole life is just about Buddhism. There's nothing else. So then it becomes, you seek really help in all aspects. But you still eat food. You're not going to, you still have to eat food and drink, and still rely on toilets. You seek, if you need to go to the toilet, you seek refuge in a toilet. I mean, you still seek help from a toilet. You see what I'm saying? It just kind of means relying on something, depending on something, and trusting yourself in something. Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad this question came up, because you may feel, I seek refuge. It's almost like I leave everything behind, and now I just seek shelter because I'm...
But I think that it is a powerful word, and I think it's good that it is a powerful word.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not changing the word, but I'm saying if for someone individually, it temporarily... Then you use it over a word.
I understand. What I wanted to say is that sometimes for me to rely on these kind of things is connected with letting go. I have this kind of image that there's this exercise when you fall like
backwards,
back, and you have to trust that someone will catch you.
That's beautiful.
So this is
it's a bit like that. I can actually let myself.
And you do need to be a little bit helpless.
Yes.
And be weak.
It's true.
Sometimes to lose yourself, but
that's why when people suffer, then they seek help. There's like it's called a very humbling. When people have a problem, like I experience, some disaster, maybe they lose their home or their job or their health, etc. Often then it's kind of then they suddenly see their own weakness, and it's a very humbling experience, and then you're really more able to entrust yourself, right? That's why a lot of people seek out the Dharma when there's problems. When things go well for them, they feel like, I can do it on my own, I can do everything, which is true, they can still do a lot of things, but we also need still assistance. Yeah, so I think she's right. It's actually beautiful, this idea. It's almost like you fall back. You can actually lean backwards. You can relax. There is help. So, but it just depends. I think we need to check our own mind. In the end, we become our own therapists. As I said yesterday, as Lama Geshe often says, see how it works best for you. What I like so much about this group, everyone, yesterday in particular, today we didn't have that many discussions, but if you remember yesterday, we had all these discussions. Someone said, for me this works better. For me that works better. So it was beautiful, because it's just a very individual, in the end we need to adjust everything according to our own needs. And if the word taking refuge leads to that association, use a different words. But the way she just described it, I thought it was also very beautiful. It's like, lean back. It's all right. It's all right that I need help. It's okay. Yeah, I have my weak points. It's okay to be weak. It's part of the acceptance part. Okay, I have limits. That's okay. I'm still a good person. I still have wonderful qualities. So the problem of low self-esteem, sometimes people, they suffer from low self-esteem. And if on top of that I need to take refuge, no, thank you very much. Right? No, it's okay. I'm not perfect. It's great. I'm imperfect, and that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, you wanted to say something?
I want to ask, we feel like this.
A little louder, yeah.
I feel like this. I feel that the Buddha Sangha,
Buddha Dhamma Sangha.
but I feel it. I try to go in the way. So why I need to take a refuge to?
Ah, you mean like in a refuge ritual?
Yeah.
No, you don't need that. That's made for Westerners. That's made for... Okay. Okay. This is very cute, yeah.
I feel like this. I do it, but why I need to say it?
No, okay. This is very interesting, yeah. But you brought up is a very interesting point. Now, what does it actually mean to be Buddhist? Now, there are different translations of that. You know, I mean, first of all, let me tell you something. When I first became a nun, I remember sometimes people ask me, "Are you a Buddhist?" And I wanted to say, no. Why? Because I felt like I couldn't be anything else. To be a nun was okay, but be a Buddhist, I felt like, well, if I'm a Buddhist, I can't be anything else. That was just my projection. It's actually just a name. So being Buddhist or not Buddhist, who cares? Let's just leave the names to the side, okay? But usually, the entryway into Buddhist practice, let's put it that way, is to take refuge. Because you do actually automatically, to some degree, when you take the teachings, you entrust yourself in the Buddha and so forth. So you do it automatically already to some degree when you start practicing. But it's better to consciously do it because it keeps you on the track. To think, I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the Sangha. It makes it more effective. You're psychologically, you know, you enter more into it and you become more dedicated and you stay focused. It helps you. Now this is what it means to do Buddhist practice. Some people would say that means what it be to be a Buddhist. But that's like a scary... We so believe in words in the West. We so believe in words. I mean, Tibetans are not like that. This I need to tell you. Sorry for this distraction. It's funny. That's the enjoyable part. But it's also so true. Tibetans, because of their background in Buddhism, they're not as obsessed about words. So, an old person is an old person. There's no word for elderly. I had a classmate who was fat. He was called Fatty. I had a classmate who had pimples. He was called Pimple. It's just a word. No one took it personally. You know, it's just a word. We still have a cook. He's called Fatty. You know, it's okay. He says, you know, I'm not thin. It's okay. It's just a word. So, you see, the thing is like in the West, we're so concerned about words. You know, like every 5 years, the word for someone who has mental problems has changed. Right? What was it called? A person was in the past? Crazy. Then? Lunatic. Then? A better word now. Insane. Yeah. Then? Now it's mentally... The retarded. Now it's mentally challenged. Right? So, I mean, you see, the thing is like... It's not... I know the motivation is not to hurt someone. But first we use a word that has a very neutral meaning. And then through habituation, it seems the word in itself has some negative connotation. Then we need to change the word. But that's not really true. It just depends on, you see, like, that's why in the West, names always become unfashionable. In Tibetan, you don't have that. People were called Lobsang and Pema and Denzin 1,000 years ago, and they still are. How many people are called Khatsili? No, that's not called. What's the word? White lily. Chavatzelle. It's an old-fashioned name, right? Chavatzelle. Okay, yeah, there you go. Another old-fashioned Chavatzelle.
They come back, they all their names.
Now, exactly, because you run out of names, so they have to come back. So you see, in the West, because of we don't have the see, in Buddhism, it's like, it's just a word. Forget about it. Don't be so you know, we need to use the words, but that's not, yeah? But our sense of words, because of not being familiar with this idea, a word is a word. So therefore, you can no longer call an old person as elderly. We don't have any old people anymore. You're 99 and you're still elderly, because we feel it's not good to be old.
No, senior citizen.
Yeah, we're no longer the elderly. I missed that part. Now we're senior citizens.
You mentioned that in China.
Yeah.
Until 70 years ago, something like that,
yeah.
They used to call the children by number. Chang 7, come here, please.
Yeah, right. Now there's a glow. Oh my God. Right? I mean, the motivation is the problem, not really the names. But we sometimes are unable to, to differentiate. So, I mean, when I first came to Dharamsala, I was very red-faced. On top of that, my classmates, they would always scrub their face with a lot of soap. So I thought, okay, you scrub your face with a lot of soap. So it was very cold water. I would scrub my face with, my mouth was bright red, And my classmates called me, the monkeys in Dharamsala, they have a red behind. They called me monkey bum. My first was like, oh, they called me monkey bum. What do I think? Going against women, look what they do, And then I was like, oh, come on, it's just a word, My underclassmate is called acne. Then the other one is called fatty. I mean, okay, I called myself monkey bum. I said, my name is monkey bum. And then they stopped calling me because it was no longer fun. Right? So it's just words. I mean, we shouldn't be so PC sometimes, so concerned about words. Of course, if we live in a society, we need to go along with it. But not to be so upset when someone uses a word. Come on, it's just a word. So all I'm trying to say here, how did I start up? What? Oh, refuge, yes. Being a Buddhist, it's just a name, it's just a label. It's nothing scary about it. You can be Jewish. If you call yourself Jewish, you're Jewish. You call yourself Buddhist, you're Buddhist. Who cares, We're so scared about it. We're so worried about it. So let's not give so much power to words, right? I remember there's this joke. It's like a joke. I've been using it. It always makes people laugh. So when I get a little bored, I make people laugh. So I tell them the story when I went to restaurant with an old friend of mine called Maya, and I looked at the menu and there was a dish called shashuka, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't see what the dish was, I didn't know what it was, I just read shashuka and I said, oh, if I had a girl, I'd call it shashuka, it sounds beautiful. And he was like, what are you saying, who would call their child shashuka? It's like calling your child, I don't know, falafel, or I don't know, German sausage, like who would call it? Yeah. But it was just showing me how it's just a word that sounds beautiful to me. It did not mean, and later on, Sipi took me to have shashuka, so I tried it, but I didn't think of tomatoes and egg, right? It was just a pretty name. So, but we believe that a name is inherently means something. Intrinsically it's beautiful, intrinsically it's ugly. It's just created by the mind. And that's why names can become unfashionable and fashionable again, right? Fashionable, it's very interesting. It seems intrinsically old-fashioned until you see 10 little children called Shoshana and
Shashuka.
yeah, Shashuka, no, Chavatzelet, and then suddenly, because my little niece is called Matilda. When I first heard this, I was like, oh my God, they called this little girl Matilda. It's like waltzing Matilda. It's such an old-fashioned song. And now I think of Matilda as this cute little girl, and now I've changed. Right? So the power of words. So I'm saying, Buddhist, you're Buddhist. Who cares? It's just a word. Here, whether you're Buddhist or not, you entrust yourself. You entrust yourself. You go in that direction. You inspire. You give.
It's an obligation if you don't want to call it.
Whatever you call it.
It's an obligation.
Yes, you commit yourself to something because you want to be happier and you feel you're a better person and other people are happier around you. That's it. So you take refuge, you entrust yourself in something that is trustworthy. You entrust yourself still in other things. You still eat chocolate and you go to the doctor. Yeah. So entrusting yourself, maybe it's a better word for the time being or for some people. So to entrust yourself. So, and then what happened was, that's what it means to be a Buddhist, by definition. You entrust yourself. And like I said, you can be anything else, and you can also give yourself the label Buddhist. Okay, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But then there were people from the West who came to Buddhism, and they heard, well, taking refuge means to become a Buddhist, and they wanted to become a Buddhist. So then the Lamas initially told them, well, just take refuge and that's it. That's how Tibetans are Buddhists. Actually, many Tibetans are not Buddhists because they don't take refuge. They say we are Buddhist, but the definition is really you entrust yourself. But they don't even know what Buddha Dharma Sangha means. So by definition, they're actually not Buddhist because it's got nothing to, it's a mental state. It's nothing to do with your parents. So in Judaism, if your mom is Jewish, you're Jewish. So therefore, if you're Buddhist and you're Jewish, you're a Jubu. There's a word for that because a lot of Jewish people who are Buddhist, there's like this joke because there are a lot of scholars great scholars who are Jewish, so they say the Dalai Lama must be Jewish. No, he's a great scholar. So anyway, Jubu. Okay, you're a Jubu. Okay, it's easy to say. So, the Jew in the lotus. It's no longer the jewel in the lotus, it's the Jew in the lotus. Anyway, there's a book on that.
Once the Geshe was one last present
Yeah.
from Sperm's Buddha.
Uh-huh.
And when I gave it to him, he said, now I have a Jewish Buddha from Sperm's Buddha.
Oh, there you go. Beautiful. So, okay, so they're just labeled. So if your mother is Jewish, you're Jewish. Okay, that's how we use the label. If someone decides from now on, if your father is Jewish, then you're Jewish. Well, those who were Jewish before may no longer be Jewish, right? And now it's changed. But can you find some Jewishness from the side of the object? No. Really, it's like, it's actually just a label we use, depending on a certain, and we use it commonly and it's accepted. That's it. All right, so with the whole Buddhist thing. So people in the West came to the Tibetans and said, I want to be Buddhist. Now I just take refuge. But it seemed weird, especially those who come from a Christian background where baptism makes you Christian, right? I don't know whether I am still Christian, actually. I don't know whether I don't care, but whether I still fulfill the definition because I was baptized. So I don't think I was Christian when I was born, even though both my parents were Christian. I guess it's because when I was baptized, and am I still Christian? I don't know. I never found out. I maybe want to ask a priest one day. I'm sure every priest disagrees on that anyway. But the point is you have a ritual that you go through. Now in Judaism, you have bar mitzvah, right? What's it called for girls? Bat mitzvah. Bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. Okay. Does that mean you're now Jewish?
No.
No, you were Jewish before. So you're born Jewish, right? Okay, so then, okay. Right, but I mean, my question is, can I become Jewish if I want to?
Very hard.
Complicated.
Very hard, right? I have to ask 3 times, okay? I heard it. I have to study, I have to do, of course, it makes sense.
You have to be baptized to...
So I have to go through a ritual. So unless I was born Jewish, so that I don't have to do it, if I want to become Jewish, I have to do a lot of things, and on top of that, there's a ritual. So, we're used to that. If I was previously not Jewish, but I want to become, I need a ritual. If I was previously not Christian and I want to become, I need to be baptized. I'm sure in Islam, do you have that in Islam too? Yeah, you can become Muslim, but you have to go through, okay. In Hinduism, I'm not sure. So they invented a ritual. The lamas, very skillfully, texture, yes please?
In the time of the Buddha, when people wanted to join the monastic community and follow the Buddha, or even I think the lay people, the kings, etc., they took refuge.
But refuge means they didn't go through a ritual, because I don't believe there was a ritual. Take refuge just means you think, and it's not the words. The words are just helping you, just like with the prostrations. Prostrations are an internal state, and then you just do the physical movements. So internally you think, I entrust myself, I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the Sangha. That's what it means, taking refuge. I don't think there was a ritual.
I don't think it's a Tibetan. I think the ritual is not Tibetan.
No, it's made for Westerners. It comes from the. I mean, I don't know. I can only say I did a little bit of research on this, and I've never found any scripture referring to any. It was all saying you take refuge, but taking refuge by definition means mental. Yeah, so it's not like you repeat after the Lama something, something, something. I never came across this. I may be wrong, so let's leave this open because Taekjuk describes something different. So of course the ritual is called taking refuge, and then the actual internal is also called. So we have this name, but I've never seen any reference to an actual ritual that you go through. You go to like taking vows. That's different. When you take vows, there's a certain ritual described in the scriptures as part of the, for example, taking what's called the Mahayana precepts, or taking nuns' vows. They're like whole scriptures that describe exactly what you do. I don't think there's a scripture on that. There are explanations of how to take refuge, the benefits of doing so, what to take refuge in, what are the causes for it. But it never speaks of a ritual. And if it did, that's the time to talk about it, right? But let's investigate further. It's an interesting point Taekjuk just made. So, but the point is therefore that Tibetans never do this ritual, right? maybe before they didn't like Buddhism, and suddenly they decided, oh, now I like Buddhism. I mean, a lot of Tibetans, they say, I don't like Buddhism. They're you know, I'm not interested. And then one day something sparks them, and then they say suddenly, oh, I'm a Buddhist now. How did this happen? Well, I started taking refuge. That's it. But for Westerners, it was helpful to kind of draw that line. And so it's become customary. And it's passed on from one person to the next. No Lama says you have to